Hey everyone, it's ItsKindaBernt. I'm ItsKindaBernt. I hope everyone had a great Christmas and or holiday break. I don't know what everyone was doing on their Christmas, but one of the things that I was happy to do this weekend, was catch a holiday release. In this case, it was the sequel to Knives Out, Glass Onion by Rian Johnson for Netflix. Not gonna lie, this has been on my radar for a bit. I was a big fan of Knives Out when it came out in theaters. I like Rian Johnson. I've been watching his stuff ever since Brick, which I think is a very underrated but rightful cult classic noir film, neo-noir film, with a lot of great acting and a lot of great direction and very interesting writing and lingo style, and I think everyone should see it. And this is probably going to be a different video altogether someday, but I know a lot of people outright hate The Last Jedi, but I for one am a big fan of it. So, all around, I'm just a big fan of Rian Johnson, and Knives Out was no exception. I was pretty jazzed to see it when it came out a few years ago, but I wasn't entirely prepared for all the subversion that it did and all the interesting things that it did with a traditional detective murder mystery narrative, and how it constantly rearranged the pieces and played with your expectations, and it was a fun ride. I know that a lot of people are sort of mad at how the story plays out in that film, but agree to disagree. I thought it was a really great film all around. Good cast, good direction, good writing, and breakout character Benoit Blanc. A lot of people gave Daniel Craig a lot of unnecessary grief for that role, coming off of his role as James Bond in what some celebrate as some of the better James Bond films, thinking that this character that he chose to play was just kind of a step down, and I profoundly disagree. And apparently so does Daniel Craig. He apparently has a lot more fun being Benoit Blanc on screen than he ever did as James Bond, but I'll let him tell that story. Knives Out ended up making quite a bit of money at the box office, but in a surprising turn of events, Netflix ended up buying the rights to the sequels and gave, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of $450 or $500 million to make two sequels and have them exclusively on Netflix. And this is the first of those planned sequels, and rightfully so. A lot of people were very excited about it. So, was it any good? I won't beat around the bush, yes. Glass Onion, despite having a name that a lot of people have already vocally said is not the best title, although once you see the movie you understand exactly why, and it takes on a lot more importance and I think grows on you. It is, again, a very enjoyable movie, a good sequel, and definitely worth your time. If you're coming back for some of the same stuff that you saw in the original film, you're going to see a lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of subversions of the genre, a lot of expectations that will completely be turned upside down. And if you are also a fan like me and were a fan of the commentary of the first film, you will not be disappointed in that regard either. I think, in fact, a lot of the reason why the first film was such a success and why some people were not so bummed out by how the story and the mystery plays out in that film was the fact that the commentary was so strong and the voice of the film and what it had to say was so strong, and it was refreshing. And I think it's safe to say that Rian Johnson is doing more of that with this character and with these mysteries, and it's refreshing, it's not preachy, it's a good payoff for these films and what they're trying to say. I would say that a lot of fans of the genre often expect that the big reveal of the murderer in a whodunit is the big payoff for those kinds of things, and I would argue that the goal of the Knives Out films, the trilogy I guess it's going to be, it's not necessarily to be a whodunit, although that isn't very important to the story, but they're more like howdunnits or whydunits, and the overall payoff tends to be the overall message of what the movie is trying to say, which I think is admirable, goes a long way, and helps to make these movies pretty rewatchable and pretty important. But a lot of people are going to be returning for Benoit Blanc, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed in that regard. Daniel Craig is able to add a lot of new and interesting things to his take on Benoit in this movie. And I didn't think it was really possible, but I like the character even more now. Is it better than the first film? I don't know that I can really say. Because in a lot of ways, I think that Hollywood is catching on to this idea, or at least some talented filmmakers are, that you don't necessarily do the same thing over and over again with each sequel. You try to do something different, and I do feel on some level this movie is apples and oranges to the first film. You get a lot of stuff that isn't from the first film. It's not a retread or a rehash of that plot necessarily, and I just don't know that it's possible necessarily to compare the two. I mean, some people may disagree with me, but I think the way the story plays out, I think how certain things happen, it's just not really possible. At least I'm not willing to. I would probably say it's as good as the first movie. I would talk a little bit more about the plot and how it plays out and what it has to say and what I liked about it and what I liked about the characters and stuff, but I feel saying much more dips directly into spoiler territory, and I don't want to do that. So just suffice it to say, it's a good movie. It's definitely worth your time. And if you have a subscription for Netflix, you should definitely check it out. I've been critical of Netflix in the past. I'm not really a fan of their business model or how they do things. I think it's kind of backwards, and they're often shooting themselves in the foot while trying to gain favor and then immediately dashing it and getting rid of it and alienating a lot of their audiences. But I think this is one of their best investments that they've made, bringing on filmmakers and bringing on talent, and I definitely think it's worth a shot. It's definitely worth a couple of hours. It's fun, it's funny, and the way it plays out is very interesting and surprising, and what it has to say is very worthwhile. It was not a traditional Christmas watch per se, but I think it was definitely one of the better film watching experiences I've had over the holidays. So I don't think you'll be disappointed. I am curious, though, having seen these two movies, where the third movie can possibly go. It's not a secret that the first movie deals with some very worthwhile but somewhat tenuous topics, not the least of which being the immigration crisis and how immigrants are treated in the country, and how there was a through line of haves and have-nots in that film. And again, I can't really comment on what this movie is about. It has a lot to say, but I think to dip into it really threatens to undo a lot of its mystery. But it's interesting to think about what the third movie is going to be about whenever we get it. I'm sure it'll take another 2 or 3 years, and I am personally excited at that prospect. I am personally excited about what that could possibly be and what Rian Johnson will have to say. I honestly would watch an entire series of Benoit Blanc movies. Well, I think he's earned a place alongside some of the better literary and fictional detectives, and I think I would like to see him more. And hopefully Daniel Craig is up for playing that character for a long time. And having these big ensemble casts get together to play off one another and have these interesting sort of subversions and interesting revisionist riffs on the neo-noir, well, detective story genre, mystery genre, murder mystery genre, I would be there. I would willingly give out my money or my subscription dollars in order to see more. Anyway, friends, I hope I answered any questions that you might have had. If you would like me to continue doing this, like and subscribe, ring the bell, tell your friends, spread the word. I'm actually getting some upward growth on the channel lately, and I would like to continue leveraging it. You can also check me out on TikTok at @BrentonSides. I am experiencing some growth there as well, and hopefully we can keep that momentum going. I would eventually like to monetize the channel, but I'm mostly just happy that people are starting to respond and starting to see. So if you have any ideas or anything that you want me to talk about or review or really do in a video, just let me know. Anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap it up now. I will see you guys later. Burnt out.